George Zunza is going to put this shotgun in Fred Willard's face. There was a feature version shot, and the film had been edited down to, I don't know, a 2-hour, maybe it's an hour and a half version that isn't nearly as much fun, where he puts the gun in his mouth. Someone paid to have it shot. A foreign distribution company gave additional money to the budget to put a few little things in it like that made it a little gorier. I absolutely feel better about the long version of Salem's Lot as opposed to the short version that really does not have the emotional impact. I didn't know while I was shooting the film, because I just didn't have time to think about the fate of that. I spent most of my time working on what my reality was, and that is this, and how tense I could make this within the restraints of what I could do.
In the living room, man-to-man stuff. I like your shorts. You must too, keeping them on like that.
If that gun had been in his mouth like it was in Stephen King's book, it would have been slightly better, but not really. I mean, you know, the gun will take his head completely off this way if that's the way it works out. The reason for this and that technical science of causing yet again another shock to come, this is only a part of that. This winds you up, and in a moment you'll get slapped.
Just hold it, Larry.
That slap's coming. I'll blow it for you right there.
Here I come, puss. Here comes Big Bad Bear.
Bonnie Bedelia and David Soul had really good chemistry. They were good friends, and they're both very loving people. They were a perfect match.
And I don't give enough answers.
This was shot on the Warner Brothers back lot. It was just a little pond of water because it was set up one shot. You see them there, and you know they're going to the lake. And so when you see a little water in the background, that expands in your mind as much more than a puddle of water. There are two of these, and I think this is the most difficult one, because I invented this rig. It seems like in the screenplay, this had been taken out, and it was truly the most effective thing for me. In Stephen King's book were these floating dead babies. And so I invented this rig to float the kid. And the reason I say I invented a rig, he isn't on wires. I wanted to be able to do a magic trick and put the floating device through the hoop. That is, of course, the window frame. And so he actually goes through the window frame that proves that he isn't hanging there by wires. And another part of this is that a lot of this scene is shot backward. So it gives a slightly weird motion that you can sense it, but you can't really see it. And also I was able to pull the smoke into him. When they aired this originally, part one was darker than this, but part two, a week later, the network showed it so dark that you almost couldn't see it. They did make an event of it, so showing it a week apart may have been better for ratings. They could string it a week.
And get in the other car. Or truck. That's what I think.
Ed Flanders was a really great natural actor that never got it wrong. Anything he did was great. Real pleasure working with him because anything he did was right.
For now, any history of rheumatic fever?
Don't touch that. Nolan, get me an envelope.
There was an effort to make it a 2-hour theatrical motion picture that I was going to direct. William Friedkin was going to produce it, and it became obvious that it just can't be done in 2 hours, and it kind of floated away. And the source material is very good. The screenplay was 200 and something pages long, and King's book was around 600 pages. And as I would do my homework, I would go back and forth between the book and the screenplay to do my best to be as faithful to the emotions that I felt reading the King novel. There was momentum in what was available to you from King as you liked it and liked it more and more and more. And he has an understanding of this, more than the genre, but how the genre works. If it's frightening or if it's something else, he has an understanding of real life as an observer. He lives in Maine, and he didn't dive into a society where it was all about how can you make it work. He knew how to make it work because he was an observer, and he wasn't pulled into a place that you had to prove how it works, if that makes any sense. And it's also much less expensive to put your ideas down on paper than it is to put them on film. He had freedom.
My partner's full name is Kurt Barlow. Kurt with a K.
I was going to do the book, but I was told this will never be done. Since that's one of the early things offered to me, I thought, well, I'd better get about doing what I'm going to do. Right around the time I got this job and was waiting at Musso Frank's for the payphone to ring, I read the book. There were a lot of people coming on the set, but I don't think Monash came to the set. I don't recall that. A lot of reasons, I mean, it could be that I was having to shoot so fast, make my day, and I shot the film in 37 days.
R.S. Writer.
It could be pernicious anemia.
Coming on.
This is a practical location in Los Angeles, the interior of this house.
Ready?
Yeah.
We're going to the movies in Bangor.
Now, everybody knows that you and Susan were up at the lake.
Yeah, look, I want you to know...
Now, you seem like a pretty nice fella to me. And I think you respect Susan. I believe she respects herself. But you could have been a little more discreet, right?
It was a good script. It's good dialogue. It's a good way of telling the story. The cemetery was in Ferndale. It's quite extraordinary, up a hill and all. But to complete the sequence, so this is in Franklin Canyon. It's off Coldwater, this cemetery that was built here. In a moment, Mike Ryerson, played by Jeffrey Lewis, will be covering the grave, and part of it is shot from inside a soundstage, and the Ferndale Cemetery and the Franklin Canyon Cemetery will all be cut together, and there just wasn't enough time. It was just work fast without sacrificing quality. That shot's in Ferndale with the town in the back. And the grave is here in a soundstage. That shot's in Ferndale with the town in the back. And the grave is here in a soundstage. I had a technical challenge in this scene. That was my response to reading the book, was how fast can I get the little boy who's now a vampire to jettison up from a position where he's lying down into Mike Ryerson's face. Came up with shooting it backwards. It's easier. You can lie down, you can fall back, and that's faster than your muscles can push you up. And in part 2, that's coming up pretty soon, there are other magic, I call them magic tricks. Jeffrey Lewis did a really great job here with this grave hypnotizing him, pulling him in. These interesting energies that are floating about Salem's Lot now. I think stepping back helped set up the possibility of him jumping into the grave or being called, pulled. That was the end of the first part of this 2-part miniseries.